28:1, the wicked flee when not pursued. Proverbs 28:1, the wicked flee when not pursued. Proverbs 28:1, the wicked flee when not pursued. Proverbs 28:1, not pursued. Proverbs 28:1, the wicked flee when not pursued.
That's easy when you're a pastor's son. You know, hey, you ain't been to jail, you didn't have no kids out of wedlock or something, you're a pretty good guy. Your dad's a pastor, you're going to be a pastor. But I wasn't really listening to them until I felt called for myself as I got older. Got licensed as a minister about 12 years ago, and after solidifying my faith, I moved to Chicago in 2012 to attend Moody Bible Institute. So that's how I ended up in the Windy City. In 2012 to attend Moody Bible Institute. So in 2012 to attend Moody Bible Institute. So in 2012 to attend Moody Bible Institute. I also went to seminary, graduated with my bachelor's 2015, my master's 2017 in pastoral ministry. And I started attending New Life Bridgeport in 2014, became a member and got married in 2015, became an elder in 2017. It's Yahweh strengthens, or may God, or may Yahweh strengthen. Fun fact, I'm going to teach y'all a little Hebrew, right? Fun fact, I'm going to teach y'all a little Hebrew. Fun fact, I'm going to teach y'all a little Hebrew. The way to pronounce Ezekiel in the Hebrew is Yahezkel. Yahezkel. Y'all try to say that with me. Yahezkel. So there's a letter in Hebrew called het. So to get that letter right, you got to just act like you got a lot of phlegm in your throat that you got to get out. Yahezkel. And Yahweh, he called Israel to proclaim, called Ezekiel, to proclaim a message of uncompromised judgment to unfaithful Israel. Even if you mess up the covenant, even if you're unfaithful, God's going to remain faithful because he's just that great. Ezekiel, he had amazing, elaborate visions from God that are among some of the most vivid visions in all of Scripture. Ezekiel saw extravagant visions such as windstorms and flashing lightning, brilliant lights. And he even has a vision where he saw 4 living creatures, and then he had another vision where he saw fire and a wheel that was full of eyes. That was actually pretty scary. I was like, hey man, like, I'm glad God is giving Ezekiel these type of visions. I ain't trying to see a wheel with a bunch of eyes in them. Like, what in the world? Jesus said, if you love me, you'll do good in church attendance. If you love me, you'll give to the poor. If you love me, you'll help old people cross the street. No, he didn't say that. He said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. God says marriage is between one man, one woman for life. God says love one another and to love your neighbor as yourself. Yet sadly, many Christians are cool with racism or ethnic superiority. But we stand on the word, we say, no, we're all made in God's image and likeness and worthy of dignity and honor and respect. Hey, the word of God says every nation, tribe, and tongue will worship God one day in heaven. And sadly, some of the worst racist experience I've had has been in the church with other Christians. I've had worse experiences in the church than in the world. It should not be this way, brothers and sisters. We stand against racism, ethnic discrimination. We call it out. We don't ignore it. We won't be silent, but we also stand on the word. We preach the word, even amongst political division. And I get it. You might like one candidate over the other. That's great. But Jesus is what?
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Recha HaKwadash, and double honors to the elder apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Also, a sincere shalom to you other fellow laborers, you followers of the truth, even you few sisters, and shalom to the elect. Anyway, I want to go on this video, going into this guy's name is Justin Martyr. You would have seen him quoting the scriptures that Hebrew Israelites quote, going into Hebrew that Hebrew Israelites go into. These guys never did that before, right? So I just want to focus on that mostly. exposing this guy and basically the doctrine and his belief in where it was founded, right? As Vocab'S says, during the Civil War, that's how we found out when the Hebrew Israelite doctrine started. Well, you would see that these people that are set up never wanted us to follow our customs because they considered it as a heretic, so to speak, being heretics or uncivilized. So then they set, these pastors up, right? These evangelicals, slave owners, the majority of them, to teach young black men or, black people, Israelites, so-called black people, the faith. You can look at movies like Shawshank Redemption, and you had that wicked, he was the wicked warden, and he was always talking about the good book. That's what this is. He was always talking about the good book, but he hated Jake, right? But he always talked about a good book. Now the plot was he was coming against the other guy there, but just to make a point. So anyway, I want to go into a little history of this guy, Dwight something Moody. What is his name? Is Dwight L. Moody, right? He was let me see here. Dwight L. Moody was an American evangelist, okay, in 1870, and published Connected Keswickanism. I don't know what that is. Says the Higher Life Movement, also known as Keswick Movement, a Protestant theological tradition within evangelical Christianity that espouses district teaching of doctrines. Okay, whatever we call it. I'm going to just get to the point. This is during the Civil War. He said the first thing he ever saw standing was a little Negro boy and trying to read, but he couldn't read the story of the prodigal son, and great many words he could not read out. Okay? He says if the Lord could ever use such an instrument as that for this, his honor and glory, it will astonish me. So the whole thing at this era was converting so-called Negroes. That was their mission. It wasn't trying to wake up everybody basically in the region or just in the world. Their whole focus was, you can read books on this, on how to convert a Negro to Christianity. They got tons of books on that. I'm not going to go into that. But this guy went to school. Let me go back here. This guy went to school at the Moody Institute, and you can get a 3-year degree, 60 credits. You can get a 8-week online classes, 16-week self-paced online classes. I don't know. This is a joke. But I'm going down here. It says D.L. Moody could not conscientiously enlist in the Union Army during the Civil War, later describing himself as a Quaker, right? As a Quaker. And if you know, the Quakers was considered abolitionists, but the original Quakers were slave owners, right? And their whole job was doing the, when you have this word called emancipation, was the transfer of rulership. And these guys were used as a tool, these Quakers were used as a tool of transferring of rulership. This is why you had that fake Underground Railroad, which has been going on way before Harriet Tubman. I don't know why they put her up as the face of the Underground Railroad, because you had several before her and after her, right? And then you had Underground Railroads coming back from the north down to the south. So they don't teach you that either. And this woman, Harriet Tubman, was used by the Quakers, funded, weaponized, right, and given men. And her own husband said he didn't want to do it. He considered it being like a sellout. I don't know. But you can read this stuff up. Okay? So basically, this school for what you call theology was funded off of a form of racism. Now, they will do videos and say the Quakers, long after they was abolitionists, they was against racism, and you can go to the stories that make it sound good, but really what it was is just a transfer of rulership. It was money. It was a transfer of rulership. And that's why the slaves in the South were pissed off. Slave owners was pissed off because they wanted to keep their slave. They didn't want them to be free. They were never really free, because what happened is when they abolished so-called slavery, you had a whole bunch of slaves just moping around. You can look this stuff up. They were walking around. They had nowhere to go. You took them from a land and placed them somewhere, stripped them of everything, stripped them of their heritage, and when you broke them, you left them out there. And then they would get locked up for vagrancy laws, right? And then when they would get locked up, they would reinstitute a form of slavery again. So all the Quakers is to help one person, help one slave be more comfortable. And this is why when you go up to the north, you had more well-to-do, uppity Jakes and Tears, right? So this is the root of a lot of that. It says here the Quakers were among the most prominent slave traders during the early days of the country. They were also among the first denominations to protest slavery, right? So there was not really. Let's read another article here, and then I'll get to the lesson a little more on what he said about every nation. It says here, I'm going to just get to it because Martin Luther King, I just read the story. Martin Luther King was trying to fight, and he says Martin Luther King Jr. and a host of African American Christians protested, boycotted, and fought for the end of the Jim Crow segregation, right? And this guy D.L. Moody and Billy Sunday was never really stepped in to help with that. It says, sadly, very few white evangelicals, including this guy, or fundamentalists, participated in the Southern civil rights cause. Many white fundamentalists branded Dr. King and civil rights movement a communistic white evangelical communistic. White evangelicals continued to focus upon saving souls for heaven. Evangelicals dispensationalists felt that Dr. King was simply wasting his time and was rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, right? Dispensationalists could have created the I Have a Dream speech, which Dr. Dream stated his hope that one day his children might play together with white children, right? And the thing about it, the whole part of Martin Luther King and all this, it really comes from the elites, but that was all a form of the abolitionists, right? We want to abolish slavery and bring all blacks and whites together. Why? Because this is what you see today. So the people of that, they're claiming to be chosen, or those elites can separate themselves. See, you Southern Idumeans was just used to break slaves and make them to conform to this world. Once that was done, there was no need for that again, you know? So Martin Luther King would have been right along with the abolitionists, the Quakers, right? Same thing. And see, they don't tell you in the history that just because slavery ended, you were still treated like trash, even today. Even all that time, you could look. If you're free from slavery, then according to this slavery, you wouldn't be having to do this, right? You wouldn't have all this racism going on. Christianity today expressed a very lukewarm and cautious response to Dr. King's efforts. Billy Graham, who was invited but didn't attend the 1963 March on Washington, said, "Only when Christ comes again will little white children of Alabama walk hand in hand with little black children." Right? This is what Billy Graham said. So all these guys are linked to this racist Christianity, man. Graham's view wasn't meant to be harsh or bigoted, but simply what most white evangelicals perceived to be realistic. Right? So you had the black churches, you had the white churches. Then the white churches, even though they converted us, right, forced Israelites to follow white Jesus plantationism, Christianism, right? Even though we were bombed and destroyed, even though they built those churches and we converted, these people still bombed and set fire bombs on the churches. But where was D.L. Moody and the Quakers? None of them came down there to help Jake, man. Anyway, and it might have been a few that tried, but they wasn't fighting to end it, as they say. Anyway, Mark 12:29, because this guy, he doesn't understand the scriptures. Right? He doesn't understand the scriptures. He doesn't understand the Bible, man. The commandments is for everybody. Mark 12:29, and Jesus answered him, "The first of all commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength." This is the first commandment. Remember, it says, "Hear, O Israel," right? And the second is like, namely this, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." Right? Who's that neighbor? Here we go again. "Hear, O Israel." That's talking about the Israelites. There's none other commandment greater than these. That's why John 11:49 said, "He shall die for his people." I mean, this nation. Right? Acts 5:29 as well. Let's go to Revelation 7:9 that he quoted. See, all that theological seminary madness, that was all set up off of converting so-called Israelites, so-called black people, to follow white Christianity. And over time, our people fought to continue to fight for Christianity. Because you know what happens when you're taken, you'll start siding with the oppressor and become adopted to what he believes. And all it takes is the money. A few so-called blacks, get a little extra dollars, a little financial assistance. This guy, Richard Humphreys of the HBCU, he was also a Quaker, right? He was also a Quaker. So these Quakers, what they was doing is setting up theological schools. They were setting up colleges to retrain black people, right? Israelites, Native Americans, to follow the doctrines and the customs of Babylon. They had Christmas parties and Easter egg hunts. This is no lie. You can look this stuff up. Revelation 7:9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues, stood before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed in white robes and palms in their hands. So if you look up this word nations, it's G 1484. It means a multitude associated living together, a multitude of individuals of the same nature or genus, right? That's why it's so many different definitions here, because nations can mean a lot of things. They're proving that. 1A, 2, 3, 4, 5. So genus goes back to gene. Multitude of individuals of the same genus, the genetics, phylogeny, if I'm not mistaken. Right? A tribe, nation, a people of group. In the Old Testament, foreign nations not worshiping the true God, pagan Gentiles. Paul uses the term for Gentile Christians. So now we got to take one of these, which it clearly say a multitude living together. Now, when you go to the multitude, Hosea 1 and 10, it also precepts to that. Israel shall be as the sand of the sea. So let's go on over here to nations, kindreds. Kindreds, this is easy work, G5443. It says, a tribe in the New Testament, the NT, all persons descended from one of the 12 sons of the patriarch of Jacob, a nation people. So here we go. So those kindreds, when Deuteronomy 28 and 64 says the Israelites will be scattered amongst all nations, right? And this guy, Dwight, or whatever his name is, Moody, he was part of helping with that. Because not only did they go up north, but when they went up north, they were sent, through as scholars or whatever you want to call it, or as people in general for different jobs throughout different parts of the globe. They had you, once they delivered you, you became their captor. So it's really that simple. So our people are all over, man. And these Quakers, they wasn't as innocent as it perceived to be. And this is what these people do. They create such harsh situations, and then they come in with the solution, and you feel like you're saved. And another thing with that thing where these Christians say, "Oh, you saved, you saved." When they said that, that was dealing with Christians who were delivered, that was considered delivered, because they bowed down to white Jesus, or they bowed down to that doctrine. And anybody who didn't, and they would come up to them and say, "Are you saved?" And if they say, "No, I don't agree with that," they would be put to death. John Calvin was one of them. There's a whole lot of history on that. So when the Christians say, "Are you saved?" that has nothing to do with Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. Are you saved means save your life because you adopted Christianity. Hope this lesson was edifying. That's all I have on that. Shalom.